The Blood Moon Pack believed the story ended the night Selena Vale disappeared. For 3 years. That was the version everyone accepted. The weak Omega was gone. The future Luna was dead. And the kingdom moved on as if she had never existed at all. But kingdoms built on betrayal do not stay silent forever. Because every lie leaves behind traces. Every act of cruelty creates consequences. And on the edge of the western mountains, where the cliffs descend into darkness so deep no warrior dares climb below, the truth of what happened that night never disappeared. It waited, hidden beneath stone, buried beneath fear, remembered only by the moon itself. The elders still refuse to speak openly about the Blood Moon Festival. Warriors who survived that night avoid the subject entirely. And whenever Alpha Kale's name is mentioned beside Selena's, an uneasy silence fills the room. Because some wounds never truly close. Especially when the dead refuse to remain dead. The official story was simple. Selena wandered too close to the cliffs during the festival celebration. A tragic accident. Nothing more. That was the explanation repeated across the territories. No investigation. No search party. No funeral. Only silence. And perhaps that silence revealed more than words ever could. Because according to witnesses, Alpha Kale never once looked surprised when Selena vanished. He looked haunted, as though he already knew exactly where she had gone. And perhaps even worse. Why? The Blood Moon Festival had always been dangerous. Once every decade, the red moon rises above the kingdom walls, covering the forests in crimson light. Ancient wolves believed the moon revealed hidden truths during those hours. Secrets, desires, fears. And on the night Selena disappeared, the moon burned darker than anyone could remember. Some claimed the animals stopped making noise entirely. Others swore the wind itself carried screams through the mountains long before Selena reached the cliffs. But no one understood the meaning of those signs until much later. Because at the center of it all stood a young woman the kingdom never truly accepted. Selena Vale was not born powerful. She carried no famous bloodline, no royal status, no legendary family name. Inside Blood Moon territory, that made her invisible. The servants ignored her. The warriors mocked her. And the nobles treated her existence like an inconvenience. Yet despite everything, the moon goddess chose her. A decision that changed the fate of every kingdom forever. The bond appeared during the winter ceremony months earlier. One moment the hall celebrated victory after a territorial war. The next, Selena collapsed to the marble floor as silver markings spread across her wrist. The entire room froze. Because standing directly across from her was Alpha Kale, the strongest alpha of the Western territories, feared by enemies, respected by warriors, a ruler whose commands shaped the lives of thousands. And in a single moment, the moon goddess tied his soul to Selena forever. Witnesses described the silence inside the hall as unbearable. No one moved. No one breathed. Because the future Luna of Blood Moon Pack was an Omega no one respected. Then came the moment that would quietly begin destroying the kingdom from within. Kale looked at Selena, and instead of pride, his face hardened with something far colder. Fear. Not fear of Selena herself. Fear of what her existence might change. And standing beside the throne that night, watching everything unfold with unreadable eyes, was Lady Seraphine. Beautiful, intelligent, dangerously patient. For years, many believed Seraphine would eventually become Luna. She already controlled much of the kingdom's political influence. The elders listened to her advice. The warriors admired her, and rumors surrounding her relationship with Kale had circulated long before Selena appeared. But the moon goddess had chosen differently. And according to surviving records, that was the exact moment resentment turned into hatred. First, the changes inside the kingdom happened slowly, almost carefully. Selena was excluded from royal gatherings, ignored during ceremonies, separated from important discussions. The pack noticed it immediately. If the alpha refused to acknowledge his mate, why should anyone else respect her? And little by little, the future Luna became isolated inside her own kingdom. Some warriors later admitted they regretted how they treated her. Others denied any involvement at all. But one detail appears consistently across every account. Selena kept trying. Despite the humiliation, she remained loyal to Kale, even when he avoided her, even when the whispers spread through the fortress halls, even when Seraphine publicly questioned whether Selena was worthy of the Luna title. Still, Selena stayed. Perhaps because she believed the mate bond would eventually bring Kale back to her. Or perhaps because she simply had nowhere else to go. But whatever hope she once carried, it began collapsing during the weeks leading to the Blood Moon Festival. That was when strange incidents started occurring across the territory. Missing patrols. Dead rogues discovered near the borders. Unexplained claw marks carved into ancient trees. The elders warned Kale repeatedly that something was wrong. Yet according to palace records, his attention remained focused elsewhere, on Selena, or more specifically, on avoiding her completely. And while the kingdom searched the forests for outside threats, the true danger had already entered the palace walls. There are conflicting versions of what happened on the final evening before Selena vanished. Some claim Kale and Seraphine argued privately inside the council chambers. Others insist Selena was seen crying near the eastern tower shortly before sunset. But nearly every witness agrees on one disturbing detail. That night, Kale looked distracted, restless, like a man losing control of something he could no longer contain. Meanwhile, Selena attended the festival alone. No Luna escort, no royal protection, no alpha beside her. Just thousands of watching eyes as she walked through a celebration where she clearly did not belong. And somewhere within the crowd, someone was waiting for her to leave the safety of the fortress. The music continued for hours. Warriors drank beside massive fires. The red moon climbed higher above the mountains. And slowly, the kingdom celebrated its future, while unknowingly walking toward disaster. Then came the moment everything changed. A servant later claimed Selena received a message during the festival. A message requesting she meet someone near the northern cliffs. No one knows who delivered it. No records of the note survived. But witnesses confirmed Selena quietly disappeared from the celebration shortly after midnight. Alone. No guards followed her. No one stopped her. And perhaps most disturbing of all, according to one surviving warrior account, Alpha Kale watched her leave. He did not call after her. He did not follow. He simply stood there beneath the crimson moon, silent, as though already sensing what waited in the darkness ahead. The path toward the cliffs was narrow, dangerous, surrounded by thick forest and sharp mountain stone. Locals avoided the area even during daylight. Ancient stories claimed wolves once disappeared there without explanation. Some believed spirits lived beneath the ravine. Others believed something much older slept below the mountains. Whatever the truth may be, that place would soon become the graveyard of Selena's old life. Because hidden within the shadows near the cliffside, 3 rogue wolves waited in silence. And standing beside them was Seraphine. Selena stopped the moment she saw them. Confusion turned into fear almost instantly. Then realization. Not an accident. Not a misunderstanding. Trap. Witnesses never heard Selena's exact words that night. But based on later testimonies, she immediately understood the horrifying truth. This betrayal had been planned long before she arrived at the cliffs. And then came the question that shattered her completely. Does Cale know? For a brief moment, even Seraphine reportedly hesitated. Then she smiled, and gave the answer that would echo through the kingdoms for years. Yes. Everything after that happened quickly. The rogues attacked. Selena fought desperately despite being outnumbered. Claw marks covered the stone. Blood stained the cliff path. And somewhere high above the ravine, another figure emerged beneath the red moon. Cale. Butching. Some accounts claim he arrived too late. Others insist he stood there long enough to stop everything. No one truly knows. But what happened next became one of the most feared moments in werewolf history. Selena looked up toward Cale. Injured. Bleeding. Heartbroken. Waiting for him to save her. And for several seconds, neither of them moved. Then Seraphine stepped forward. One push. One scream. One terrible moment beneath the blood moon. And Selena disappeared into the darkness below. The mountains fell silent. The wind stopped. Even the rogues reportedly froze in shock after hearing her body vanish into the endless ravine. Far above the cliffs, Cale remained completely still. Witnesses later described his expression as something beyond grief, as though he realized too late that he had just destroyed the only person who ever truly loved him. But by then, it was already over. Or at least, that is what everyone believed. Because deep beneath the cliffs, far below the kingdom that betrayed her, Selena opened her eyes. And surrounding her in the darkness, stood wolves with glowing silver eyes. Ancient wolves. Forgotten wolves. Creatures no kingdom had seen for centuries. Then one voice emerged from the shadows. Ancient. Terrifying. You were never meant to die tonight. And in that moment, the girl who fell from the Blood Moon cliffs disappeared forever. Something else had awakened in her place. For the people of Blood Moon territory, Selena's disappearance eventually became easier to ignore than explain. Days turned into weeks. Weeks became months. And slowly, the kingdom buried her memory beneath war celebrations, political alliances, and carefully controlled silence. But there was one problem no one could erase. Alpha Cale was changing. First, the differences were subtle. His temper became unstable. Meetings ended violently. Patrol warriors began avoiding direct eye contact with him. And according to several council servants, the Alpha had stopped sleeping entirely. Some nights, his roar echoed across the fortress so violently that wolves in nearby villages shifted involuntarily from fear alone. No official explanation was ever given. But rumors spread quickly. The mate bond was still alive. Which meant one impossible thing. Selena Vale had survived the fall. That possibility terrified the kingdom more than anyone admitted publicly. Because if Selena lived, then the story surrounding her disappearance was a lie. And lies inside Alpha kingdoms rarely stay buried forever. Especially when guilt begins revealing itself through cracks no ruler can control. The Blood Moon fortress itself seemed to change after the cliff incident. The once celebrated palace corridors grew quieter. Servants whispered instead of speaking openly. Even the warriors stationed near the northern towers reportedly requested reassignment after hearing strange sounds late at night. Some described hearing a woman crying beyond the mountain winds. Others claimed they saw Kale standing alone at the cliffside long after midnight, motionless, staring into the darkness below, perhaps hoping to see someone who should have been dead, or perhaps fearing he eventually would. Meanwhile, Lady Seraphine's influence inside the kingdom expanded rapidly. With Selena gone, there was no longer anyone standing between her and the Luna throne. At least on the surface. The council elders officially began discussing her coronation only 3 months after Selena disappeared. Many considered the decision rushed. Others quietly opposed it altogether. But no one challenged Kale directly. Not openly. Because despite everything, the Alpha remained dangerous. And lately, far more unstable than before. Several records from that period mention violent outbursts during council meetings. One elder reportedly questioned whether the moon goddess truly approved of Selena's death. Kale nearly killed him for it. Another advisor suggested organizing a search beyond the ravine. The Alpha ended the meeting immediately. No one mentioned Selena again after that. At least not in front of him. But the deeper truth remained impossible to ignore. Kale never rejected the mate bond officially. That detail would later become critically important. According to ancient werewolf law, an alpha could sever a mate connection publicly before the moon goddess. Kale never performed the ritual, which raised one disturbing question. If he truly wanted Selena gone, why keep the bond alive? Some believed guilt stopped him. Others suspected something far more complicated. Because despite his coldness toward Selena, witness accounts from before her disappearance reveal moments that never fully made sense. Moments Kale himself seemed desperate to hide. Several palace guards later admitted they once saw the Alpha attack a warrior for insulting Selena during training. Another servant claimed Kale secretly ordered healers to treat Selena's injuries after punishments from higher-ranking females inside the pack. And one elderly maid swore she overheard Kale arguing with Seraphine shortly before the Blood Moon Festival. "You're pushing this too far." Those were reportedly his exact words. But if that was true, then why did he remain silent the night Selena fell? That question would haunt the kingdom for years. Far beyond Blood Moon territory, Selena's transformation had already begun. The Shadow Fong Kingdom existed beneath mountains untouched by ordinary wolves. A hidden civilization older than every modern Alpha line combined. Even their architecture looked unfamiliar. Massive stone halls carved directly into silver cliffs. Ancient symbols glowing beneath torchlight. And warriors unlike anything Selena had ever seen before. They moved differently, fought differently. Even their wolves carried an unnatural presence. The elders called them pure-blood royals, descendants of the first wolves created by the moon goddess herself. For centuries, they remained hidden from the outside world, watching, waiting, preparing for a prophecy they believed would eventually reshape every kingdom. And according to their sacred markings, that prophecy centered around Selena. First, she refused to believe any of it. The idea sounded impossible, ridiculous even. How could an abandoned Omega become connected to royal bloodlines lost to history? How could someone so weak survive what happened at the cliffs? But the elders insisted her survival was no accident. They claimed the blood moon itself reacted when Selena fell. Ancient magic awakened beneath the ravine. And something sleeping deep within her bloodline answered the call. The proof became impossible to deny soon afterward. Because Selena's wolf began changing. Painfully. Violently. The transformation reportedly lasted 3 days. Her body temperature rose beyond normal werewolf limits. Silver markings spread across her skin during the night. And whenever she closed her eyes, visions appeared. Not dreams. Visions. Burning kingdoms. Collapsed thrones. Warriors kneeling beneath silver banners. And at the center of it all, alone, broken, covered in blood beneath a dying moon. The visions frightened Selena more than the physical transformation itself, because each one felt real, as though she wasn't seeing the future, but remembering something that had not happened yet. Meanwhile, back inside Blood Moon territory, another disturbing development emerged. The rogues responsible for Selena's attack were found dead, not executed, not captured, torn apart. Their bodies appeared near the eastern borders less than a month after the cliff incident. Every corpse carried the same injuries. Massive claw wounds unlike any ordinary werewolf attack. The sight reportedly disturbed even veteran warriors, because whatever killed those rogues did not hunt like a normal wolf. And according to surviving patrol reports, one strange detail appeared at every scene: silver fur. The rumors exploded across the territory almost immediately. Some believed Selena returned for revenge. Others insisted the moon goddess herself cursed Blood Moon Pack. But inside the royal fortress, one person reacted far more strongly than anyone else: Seraphine. Witnesses described her behavior changing rapidly after the rogue deaths. Paranoia replaced confidence. She doubled palace security, demanded additional guards outside her chambers, and repeatedly questioned border patrols about silver wolves seen near the mountains. It became increasingly obvious that despite Selena's disappearance, Seraphine was terrified, because deep down, she knew something the kingdom did not. Selena was never weak. She had simply never awakened. Now, whatever survived beneath those cliffs was becoming something far more dangerous than anyone anticipated. Then came the incident that changed everything. Late one evening, Kale reportedly entered Selena's abandoned chambers for the first time since her disappearance. No guards were permitted inside. No servants allowed near the hallway. Hours passed. Then suddenly, a violent roar shook the entire fortress. Warriors rushed toward the room expecting an attack. Instead, they found the Alpha alone, standing beside Selena's untouched belongings, holding one of her old necklaces in his hand. And according to witnesses, for the first time since becoming Alpha, Kale looked afraid. Not of enemies, not of war, of the truth. Because somewhere beyond the mountains, the woman he failed to save was no longer the same person who once begged for his love. She was becoming something else entirely. Something ancient, something powerful, and perhaps most terrifying of all, something that might never forgive him. By the 4th month after Selena's disappearance, the atmosphere inside Blood Moon territory had become impossible to ignore. The kingdom still functioned. Patrols continued. Council meetings carried on. Trade routes remained open. Yet beneath the appearance of stability, something felt deeply wrong. Even the wolves sensed it. Animals avoided the northern forests entirely. Hunting parties returned early without explanation, and several warriors stationed near the mountain cliffs requested permanent reassignment after reporting the same disturbing experience. They felt watched, not by rogues, not by rival packs, by something they could not explain. At first, the council dismissed those reports as fear-driven superstition. But then the disappearances began. 3 patrol wolves vanished during a routine border sweep. No bodies were found. No battle signs. only deep claw marks carved into frozen trees surrounding the area. Marks that investigators later confirmed were too large to belong to ordinary wolves. The kingdom responded immediately. Extra patrols were sent north. Curfews expanded across outer villages. And for the first time since Selena vanished, the elders openly questioned whether the Blood Moon Festival incident had truly ended the way everyone believed. That question deeply unsettled Lady Seraphine, because despite the power she gained after Selena's fall, something continued slipping beyond her control. The fear inside the kingdom was growing, and fear has a dangerous way of exposing buried truths, especially when people begin asking the wrong questions. According to palace records, Seraphine became increasingly aggressive during council discussions. Witnesses described repeated arguments between her and several elders regarding Selena's disappearance. One elder reportedly suggested reopening the investigation entirely. Seraphine immediately shut the proposal down. Too quickly. Too forcefully. And that reaction did not go unnoticed. 'Cause by then, many inside the kingdom had already started connecting certain details together. Why was Selena alone the night she disappeared? Who sent the message calling her to the cliffs? Why were rogue wolves present in restricted royal territory without detection? And perhaps most importantly, why had Alpha Kale never ordered an official search? The more the council examined the situation, the more dangerous the answers became. Meanwhile, Kale himself appeared trapped inside a battle no one else could fully understand. The Alpha grew colder by the day. Yet strangely, his behavior around Seraphine also began changing. Witnesses described growing distance between them. Private meetings stopped entirely. Public appearances together became rare. And during one royal banquet, Kale reportedly ignored Seraphine for the entire evening while staring silently at Selena's empty seat. That single moment triggered a wave of rumors across the fortress. Because for the first time, the kingdom began suspecting something unthinkable. The Alpha regretted what happened. That possibility terrified Seraphine more than anything else. Not because Kale discovering the truth would damage her influence, but because she already knew something the others did not. Selena had survived. The evidence became impossible to dismiss after the Northern Massacre. The attack occurred shortly before dawn. An entire rogue encampment hidden beyond the eastern borders was found destroyed. Not defeated. Destroyed. Trees shattered across acres of forest. Blood covering the snow. Bodies scattered so violently that veteran trackers reportedly struggled identifying what happened. And once again, silver fur was discovered at the scene. But this time, there was something else. Footprints. Human footprints. A woman's. The discovery sent shockwaves through the kingdom. Because it confirmed the rumors everyone feared speaking aloud. Someone was hunting the rogues connected to Selena's attack. Systematically. Relentlessly. And whoever it was, possessed terrifying power. When news reached the royal fortress, Kale immediately ordered all evidence sealed from the public. No council discussion. No official statement. Nothing. Yet according to several surviving guards, the Alpha personally rode toward the massacre site that same night alone. No escorts. No warriors. And when he returned before sunrise, his armor carried blood that did not belong to him. From that moment onward, Kale's obsession with the Northern Territories intensified. Maps covered his chambers. Patrol routes expanded. Secret investigations began quietly across neighboring kingdoms. But no matter how hard he searched, Selena remained invisible. almost as though she had vanished beyond the reach of the world itself. Meanwhile, deep beneath the hidden mountains of Shadow Fong Kingdom, Selena's transformation continued accelerating. The frightened Omega identity she once carried was disappearing rapidly. Training consumed her days. Ancient rituals consumed her nights. And with every passing week, the royal blood within her grew stronger. The Shadow Fong warriors quickly realized Selena possessed abilities unlike anything recorded in modern werewolf history. Her speed surpassed elite fighters. Her senses extended across impossible distances. And during combat training, wolves twice her size struggled standing against her. But her greatest change was not physical. It was emotional. The pain that once defined her slowly hardened into something colder, controlled, focused, dangerous. The elders noticed it immediately, especially during discussions involving Kale. First, he still triggered visible emotion inside her. Anger, heartbreak, confusion. But eventually, even those reactions faded. And according to the High Elder, that terrified him most, because grief can still be healed. But emotional emptiness creates something far more unpredictable. Though, despite everything, one connection refused to disappear completely. The mate bond. Late at night, Selena occasionally felt flashes of Kale's emotions through the fractured connection. Pain, rage, regret, fear. At first she resisted them, ignored them. But eventually, curiosity began replacing hatred. Because none of it made sense. If Kale truly wanted her dead, why was the bond still active? Why did his emotions feel filled with guilt instead of relief? And why, even after everything, did part of her still feel drawn toward him? The elders warned her repeatedly. The mate bond clouds judgment. Do not trust it. But the deeper Selena explored those emotions, the more complicated the truth became. Then came the discovery that changed everything. One evening, while studying ancient royal archives beneath the mountain temple, Selena uncovered a sealed document connected to Blood Moon territory. Prophecy, hidden for generations. Most of the text had deteriorated with time. But one passage remained untouched. When the blood moon betrays the silver wolf, the kingdoms shall fall to ash, and the queen beneath the mountain shall rise. The room reportedly fell silent after Selena read those words aloud. 'Cause suddenly, everything connected. The Blood Moon Festival, her survival, the ancient wolves, the visions, even Kale himself. None of it was random. Someone had known this would happen long before Selena was born. And somewhere beyond the mountains, forces far larger than ordinary pack politics were already moving. The question was no longer whether Selena would return to Blood Moon territory. The real question was what she would become when she finally did. Long before Selena Vale disappeared beneath the Blood Moon cliffs, there were already whispers inside the kingdom that something terrible was about to happen. Not openly, not directly, but quietly enough for people to notice. Servants began disappearing from palace duties without explanation. Certain guards were reassigned unusually close to the northern borders days before the festival. And according to recovered council records, Alpha Kale ordered large sections of the mountain patrols withdrawn on the exact night Selena vanished. The time. No one questioned the decision. Many believe that order changed everything. Because the cliffs should never have been unguarded. Especially during the Blood Moon Festival. The deeper investigators later examined the timeline. The more disturbing the pattern became. Someone had prepared that mountain path carefully. Too carefully. The rogues waiting near the ravine did not wander there accidentally. They knew Selena would arrive. They knew the patrol routes were gone. And most unsettling of all, they seemed completely unafraid of entering Blood Moon territory, as though someone powerful guaranteed their protection. Meanwhile, inside the fortress itself, the celebration reached its peak. Massive fires illuminated the courtyard. Warriors drank beneath crimson banners. Music echoed through the stone halls loud enough to drown out almost anything. Because hidden beneath the noise, small details were quietly unfolding. Details no one fully understood until much later. Witnesses later confirmed Selena spent most of the evening alone. No escort. No protection. No alpha beside her. Despite carrying the title of future Luna, she moved through the celebration like a stranger inside her own kingdom. Some ignored her entirely. Others watched with pity. A few openly mocked her. And through all of it, Kale remained distant, silent, standing near the upper balcony overlooking the festival below. Watching. Always watching. Several palace servants later described his behavior that night as deeply unsettling. Restless. Distracted. Like a man waiting for something he feared could no longer be stopped. Then shortly after midnight, everything shifted. A servant girl reportedly approached Selena carrying a folded message sealed with royal markings. No one ever identified her afterward. Some claim she vanished before sunrise. Others insist no servant matching her description ever existed at all. But according to surviving accounts, the note contained only one sentence. Meet me at the northern cliffs. Come alone. There was no signature. Yet Selena immediately recognized who she believed sent it. Well, that detail would later destroy many theories surrounding the case. Because despite months of rejection, Selena still trusted him enough to follow that message into darkness. And perhaps that was the cruelest part of all. She believed he finally chose her. Witnesses saw Selena leave the festival grounds moments later. She wore no armor, carried no weapons, and according to patrol records, she refused an escort when one guard briefly offered assistance near the eastern corridor. Then she disappeared into the mountain path leading north, alone. The route toward the cliffs was dangerous even during daylight. Sharp stone, dense forest, narrow edges overlooking endless ravines below. During blood moon nights, visibility became even worse. Red moonlight distorted shadows across the mountain trails. Ancient wolves once believed the cliffs themselves were cursed. Perhaps not cursed in the traditional sense, but connected to something old, something forgotten. For generations, wolves reported hearing voices near the ravine after midnight. Not human voices, not rogue howls, whispers, calling from beneath the mountains. Many dismissed those stories as superstition, until Selena fell. Because according to surviving witnesses, the mountain itself reacted that night. Animals fled the forests moments before the attack began. The wind suddenly stopped. And somewhere beneath the ravine, something awakened. Selena reached the cliff clearing approximately 20 minutes after leaving the festival. First, the area appeared empty. Only silence. Then movement emerged from the trees. 3 rogue wolves stepped into the moonlight. Large, guard, covered in old battle wounds. Selena immediately understood something was wrong. But before she could retreat, another figure appeared behind them. Lady Seraphine. Perfectly composed. As though she had rehearsed this moment countless times before. Witnesses never heard the exact conversation that followed. but fragments survived through later confessions given by one dying rogue years afterward. According to his testimony, Selena's first reaction was confusion, then disbelief, then terror, because she realized almost instantly, this was never a warning, it was an execution. The rogue later claimed Selena asked only one question after understanding the trap. Did Cale know? For several seconds, Seraphine said nothing. Then came the answer that shattered whatever hope Selena still carried. Yes. No hesitation. No emotion. Just one word. Cold enough to destroy everything. What happened next became nearly impossible to reconstruct perfectly. The surviving evidence tells part of the story. Deep claw marks carved into stone. Blood discovered across multiple sections of the cliff path. Broken tree limbs suggesting a violent struggle. Selena fought harder than anyone expected. Far harder. One rogue reportedly lost an eye during the attack. Another suffered crushed ribs severe enough to prevent shifting afterward. But numbers eventually overwhelmed her. She was injured repeatedly, driven backward toward the ravine edge. And somewhere during the chaos, another presence arrived at the cliffs. Cale. This is where witness testimonies become deeply inconsistent. Some accounts claim Cale looked horrified upon seeing the attack. Others insist he remained motionless from the beginning. One rogue later testified the Alpha ordered them to stand down. Another claimed Cale never spoke at all. Whatever the truth may be, every version ends the same way. Selena looked up toward him, bleeding, terrified, still believing he would save her. And for one terrible moment beneath the blood moon, everything stopped. Even the rogues reportedly froze. Because the future of the kingdom balanced entirely on what the Alpha chose to do next. And nothing happened. Cale did not move, did not attack, did not reach for her. And in that silence, Seraphine made her decision. One step forward, one violent shove. And Selena disappeared over the edge of the cliff. Her scream echoed across the mountains, then vanished into darkness below. What happened afterward disturbed witnesses for years. Cale reportedly lunged toward the ravine seconds too late. One rogue claimed the Alpha nearly jumped after her himself. Another insisted Cale collapsed to his knees near the cliff edge screaming Selena's name. But perhaps the strangest detail came from a patrol warrior stationed nearly 2 miles away. He swore the moment Selena vanished beneath the ravine, the red moon above the mountains darkened completely, not covered by clouds, darkened, as though something blocked its light entirely. Then came the sound, a howl unlike anything ever recorded inside Blood Moon territory. Not a rogue howl, not an alpha howl, something older, deeper, powerful enough to shake the forests themselves. The rogues panicked immediately. Even Seraphine reportedly stepped away from the cliff in fear, because far below the ravine, they realized something impossible. Selena had not hit the bottom. There was no impact, nobody, only darkness. And somewhere beneath the mountain, silver eyes opened. For centuries, the existence of the Shadow Fong Kingdom was dismissed as myth. A story told to young wolves during winter nights. An ancient civilization hidden somewhere beyond the northern mountains. A kingdom that vanished long before modern alpha bloodlines rose to power. Most believed it never existed at all. But the deeper historians investigated Selena Vale's disappearance. The more impossible it became to deny one terrifying possibility. The legends were real. Because after the fall from the Blood Moon cliffs, Selena did not wake inside a grave. She woke inside a kingdom the world had forgotten. The first thing she reportedly heard was water. Low, echoing, ancient. Then came pain. A violent burning sensation spreads through every part of her body. Witnesses later described her transformation as something far beyond ordinary werewolf healing. Bones restructuring. Veins glowing silver beneath the skin. Pulse accelerating beyond natural limits. It should have killed her. Yet somehow, didn't. When Selena finally opened her eyes, she found herself surrounded by wolves unlike anything recorded in modern territories. Massive creatures with silver markings running across dark fur. Eyes glowing faintly even in complete darkness. And standing among them, hooded figures wearing ancient armor marked with symbols older than every current alpha house combined. No one spoke at first. They simply watched her, carefully, as though confirming something they had waited centuries to see. Then one of the elders stepped forward. According to Selena's later testimony, his first words changed everything. The blood moon finally chose its queen. First, Selena believed she was hallucinating. Nothing around her made sense. The cavern itself stretched endlessly beneath the mountains. Massive stone pillars carved with forgotten runes disappeared into darkness above. Silver fire illuminated ancient pathways leading deeper underground. And everywhere she looked, wolves watched her with expressions somewhere between fear and reverence. No pity. Not a weakness. Respect. For perhaps the first time in her life, Selena was not being treated as unwanted. That realization unsettled her more than the transformation itself. Meanwhile, far above the hidden kingdom, Blood Moon territory was already descending into quiet chaos. The official report of Selena's death spread quickly across neighboring packs. A tragic accident near the cliffs. Nothing more. That explanation satisfied many outsiders. But inside Blood Moon territory, few truly believed it. Because too many details refused to disappear. Why had the mountain patrols vanished that night? Why were rogue tracks found inside restricted territory? And why? According to multiple witnesses, did Alpha Kale look devastated instead of relieved after Selena's death? Those questions spread through the kingdom faster than the council could suppress them. And the more silence the palace enforced, the more dangerous the rumors became. Especially after the nightmares started. Several wolves later reported experiencing the same dream repeatedly after Selena vanished. A silver wolf standing beneath a blood-red sky, watching the kingdom burn. First, the reports sounded meaningless, until the elders discovered something deeply disturbing. The dream matched an ancient prophecy buried within forbidden royal archives. A prophecy connected directly to the Shadow Fong bloodline. And according to those records, the return of the Silver Wolf would mark the beginning of a kingdom-ending war. The discovery was immediately sealed from the public. But not before one council elder secretly delivered a copy to Kale himself. Witnesses claim the Alpha locked himself inside his chambers for nearly an entire day afterward. No meetings, no orders, no communication. And when he finally emerged, something about him had changed. The cold distance he once carried was gone. In its place, there was fear. Not fear of enemies. Fear of understanding the truth too late. Because for the first time, Kale began suspecting Selena's fall from the cliffs may not have been random at all. Someone planned it, carefully, and perhaps even worse. Someone manipulated him into allowing it to happen. Meanwhile, deep beneath the mountains, Selena slowly began uncovering the true history of the werewolf kingdoms. The Shadow Fong elders revealed truths hidden from modern packs for generations, long before alpha territories existed. Wolves were ruled by royal bloodlines connected directly to the moon goddess. Not through dominance, not through fear, but balance. The Wolf Queen served as protector of all kingdoms, until betrayal destroyed everything. According to the elders, the royal bloodline was hunted nearly to extinction centuries earlier. Survivors disappeared beneath the mountains. The outside kingdoms rewrote history. And eventually, the world forgot the Wolf Queen ever existed. Until Selena arrived. First, she rejected the idea entirely. The thought sounded impossible. Absurd even. How could someone abandoned by her own pack carry royal blood? But the elders showed her evidence impossible to deny. Ancient murals depicting silver-marked wolves identical to her transformation. Royal symbols appearing on her skin during moonlight. And most terrifying of all, the reaction of the ancient wolves surrounding the kingdom. Whenever Selena entered certain chambers, the creatures bowed, instinctively, as though recognizing her. That frightened Selena deeply. Because whatever was awakening inside her, it was not ordinary. The transformation intensified days later. According to royal healers, Selena's wolf fully evolved during the first lunar eclipse after her arrival. The process reportedly shook entire sections of the underground kingdom. Silver energy spread through the temple walls. Ancient markings lit across the cavern floors. And somewhere far above the mountains, wolves across multiple territories began howling simultaneously without explanation. Even Kale reportedly collapsed during the event. The mate bond reacted violently as Selena's power awakened. Witnesses inside the fortress later described the alpha screaming in pain before losing consciousness entirely. No healer understood why. But the Shadow Fong elders did. The bond between Selena and Kale was changing, not weakening, transforming. And that terrified them. Because ancient records warned of only one situation capable of altering a royal mate bond. The rise of a wolf queen. Meanwhile, another terrifying discovery emerged within Blood Moon territory. The rogues involved in Selena's attack had not acted independently. Hidden communications recovered near the eastern border revealed they were hired, directed, and someone inside the kingdom helped them enter Blood Moon territory unnoticed. The evidence pointed toward conspiracy at the highest level. But before investigators could present their findings publicly, the lead council elder disappeared. No body was ever recovered. No witnesses came forward. Only bloodstains remained inside his chambers. The message was clear. Someone inside the kingdom was still hiding the truth. And they were willing to kill to keep it buried. Back beneath the mountains, Selena's training finally began. The frightened Omega identity she once carried no longer fit the person she was becoming. The Shadow Fong warriors pushed her relentlessly. Combat, strategy, ancient wolf rituals, royal discipline. Every weakness was stripped away piece by piece. And slowly, the girl who once begged for love inside Blood Moon territory disappeared. In her place, something colder emerged. Controlled, focused, powerful. Yet despite everything, one connection refused to die completely. Late at night, Selena still felt fragments of his emotions through the damaged mate bond. Pain, regret, anger, loneliness. At first she tried ignoring them. But eventually, one question became impossible to silence. If Kale truly wanted her dead, why did his grief feel real? The elders warned her repeatedly not to trust emotional bonds connected to the past. But Selena could no longer ignore the deeper feeling growing inside her. Something about the night at the cliffs still did not make sense. and somewhere far beyond the mountains, the truth was beginning to surface. Because hidden within the royal fortress of Blood Moon territory, someone was preparing to kill again. The first official signs of instability inside Blood Moon territory appeared 6 months after Selena Vale vanished beneath the cliffs. At least, that was the explanation given publicly. But according to recovered palace records, the collapse had started much earlier, long before the rogues, long before the Blood Moon festival, long before Selena ever realized she was being hunted inside her own kingdom. Because behind the walls of the royal fortress, trust had already begun breaking apart. And at the center of it all stood Alpha Kale. For years, Kale ruled through discipline and fear. Warriors obeyed him without hesitation. The council rarely challenged him openly. Even rival alphas respected the strength of Blood Moon territory under his command. But after Selena disappeared, something changed inside him that no one could fully explain. The transformation was gradual at first. Meetings became shorter. Conversations ended violently. He stopped attending royal ceremonies entirely. And according to multiple servants, the Alpha began spending long periods alone inside Selena's abandoned chambers. No one understood why. Not even Seraphine. Especially not Seraphine. Because while the kingdom viewed Selena as forgotten, Kale clearly did not. The evidence was everywhere. Selena's belongings remained untouched months after her disappearance. Her room stayed locked under direct Alpha orders. And perhaps most disturbing of all, Kale never once allowed another woman near the Luna quarters. Not even Seraphine. That detail created quiet panic within the royal council. Because according to ancient werewolf law, only a bonded mate could occupy the Luna chambers beside the Alpha. By refusing Seraphine access, Kale was unconsciously admitting something dangerous. The mate bond still mattered to him, far more than anyone realized. Meanwhile, Seraphine's control over the kingdom was beginning to weaken. First, she dismissed Kale's behavior as grief mixed with guilt. Temporary, manageable. But as the months passed, his distance from her became impossible to ignore. Private strategy meetings stopped completely. Public appearances together nearly vanished. And witnesses later described several heated arguments erupting between them behind closed doors. No recordings survived. No official transcripts exist. But one servant later claimed she overheard part of a confrontation outside the council chamber late one evening. "You lied to me." Those were reportedly Kale's exact words. The statement sent fear spreading through the palace almost immediately. Because if Kale was finally questioning the events surrounding Selena's death, then the entire kingdom stood dangerously close to discovering the truth. At the same time, the situation outside the fortress continued deteriorating rapidly. More rogues were found dead near the northern territories. Entire groups slaughtered with impossible brutality. Bodies torn apart beyond recognition. Silver fur is discovered at every scene. And according to patrol reports, survivors who escaped those attacks described seeing a wolf with glowing silver eyes moving through the forests at unnatural speed. The rumors became impossible to contain. Some believed Selena had returned from death itself. Others insisted the moon goddess sent punishment against Blood Moon territory. But among the older wolves, another theory spread quietly through the kingdom. The Silver Queen had awakened. That possibility terrified the council more than war. Because ancient records surrounding the Silver Queen were never stories of peace. They were stories of collapse. Kingdoms burning. Bloodlines ending. alphas kneeling beneath a ruler powerful enough to command every wolf alive. And somewhere inside those ancient prophecies, Blood Moon territory always fell first. Kale eventually discovered the prophecy himself. No one knows exactly how. Some believe the missing council elder delivered the records before disappearing. Others suspect Kale secretly investigated the royal archives alone. But according to palace witnesses, everything changed the night he read the document. The Alpha reportedly destroyed half his chambers afterward. Walls shattered, furniture torn apart. Even royal guards refused to enter the room until sunrise. Then came the moment that unsettled the entire kingdom. Kale ordered a secret investigation into Selena's death. Not publicly, not officially, quietly. Trusted trackers were sent toward the northern cliffs. Old patrol reports were reopened, and several guards stationed near the festival grounds were questioned privately. One by one, small details began connecting together. The withdrawn patrols, the forged royal message, the rogue movements, and perhaps most disturbing of all, Seraphine's unexplained contact with Eastern mercenary groups weeks before the Blood Moon festival. The realization reportedly shattered Kale completely, because for the first time, he understood something horrifying. Selena may never have betrayed him at all. He had been manipulated from the beginning. Meanwhile, deep beneath the hidden mountains, Selena continued transforming into something the outside kingdoms no longer understood. The Shadow Fong warriors no longer treated her like an outsider. They treated her like royalty. Every training session pushed her harder. Every ritual awakened more of the ancient blood sleeping within her. And with every passing week, the connection between Selena and ordinary wolves weakened. Her senses evolved beyond normal limits. She could hear heartbeats across massive distances, track movement through stone walls. Even ancient wolves older than modern alpha bloodlines bowed instinctively when she entered royal chambers. But the greatest change remained emotional. The girl who once begged for Kale's attention was disappearing. Slowly, painfully, yet not entirely. Because despite everything, the mate bond refused to break completely. Late at night, Selena still felt flashes of Kale's emotions. Not hatred, not indifference, regret, crushing regret. First, she dismissed those feelings as manipulation from the bond itself. But then something happened that changed her perspective entirely. One evening during combat training, Selena collapsed suddenly after experiencing a violent emotional surge through the connection. Not her emotions, chills, fear, intense, overwhelming. And beneath that fear, grief so severe it nearly stopped his heartbeat entirely. The experience disturbed even the Shadow Fong elders. Because mate bonds do not transmit emotions with that level of force unless something extraordinary occurs. Then came the second realization. Kale was searching for her. Not to finish what started at the cliffs. To find her. That discovery unsettled Selena more deeply than she admitted publicly. Because it forced her to confront a possibility she desperately wanted to avoid. What if Kale truly did not understand what Seraphine planned that night? The question haunted her. Especially after the visions returned. Unlike previous visions, these felt sharper, more detailed. She saw Kale standing inside the cliff clearing after her fall, alone, bleeding from self-inflicted claw wounds across his arms, screaming her name into the ravine below. Then came another image. Seraphine, watching him from the shadows, not grieving, smiling. Selena awoke violently from the vision moments later. And for the first time since arriving in Shadow Fong territory, she questioned her memories of the cliff itself. 'Cause suddenly, one detail became impossible to ignore. Kale never actually ordered the attack. At least, not in the vision she saw. The uncertainty began consuming her thoughts. Meanwhile, inside Blood Moon territory, Kale made a discovery that would change everything. One of the rogues involved in Selena's attack was still alive, barely, hidden inside an underground prison beneath the Eastern Territories. The rogue had been captured secretly weeks earlier after trying to flee across the borders. Seraphine reportedly ordered his execution immediately. But before her command could be carried out, Kale intervened personally. And during the interrogation that followed, the surviving rogue revealed something that nearly destroyed the Alpha completely. The attack at the cliffs was never supposed to kill Selena, only abduct her. Seraphine changed the plan at the last moment. And according to the rogue's testimony, Kale was never informed. The room reportedly fell silent afterward. Even the guards refused speaking. 'Cause suddenly, everything changed. The betrayal, the cliffs, Selena's death, Kale's silence. None of it happened the way the kingdom believed. And somewhere beyond the northern mountains, the woman Kale failed to protect was becoming powerful enough to destroy every kingdom that betrayed her. The terrifying part was this. She still did not know the full truth. But when she finally learned it, Blood Moon territory might not survive what came next. By the time winter returned to the northern mountains, Selena Vale no longer resembled the frightened Omega who vanished beneath the Blood Moon cliffs. Even the Shadow Fong elders admitted the transformation was happening faster than ancient records predicted. Too fast. And according to the oldest prophecies, that was never considered a good sign. Because throughout werewolf history, power awakened through pain rarely arrives without consequences. Especially royal power. The hidden kingdom beneath the mountains had remained isolated for centuries, not because they feared the outside world, but because the outside world feared them. The Shadow Fong bloodline carried abilities forbidden among modern Alpha territories, ancient wolf control, mind-link communication across vast distances, and according to surviving royal texts, the Silver Queen possessed something even more dangerous. The ability to command loyalty through instinct itself. Not manipulation. Not fear. Instinct. A force strong enough to bend entire Alpha bloodlines beneath her authority. That was why the royal line had been hunted nearly to extinction generations earlier. Now, for the first time in centuries, that bloodline had awakened again. Inside Selena, the signs became impossible to ignore. During combat trials, elite Shadow Fong warriors began lowering their eyes unconsciously in her presence. Ancient wolves responded to her commands without hesitation. Even the underground kingdom itself seemed to react when her emotions shifted. Silver markings illuminated the temple walls whenever her anger intensified. The elders hid their concern carefully, but privately, many feared the prophecy was unfolding too quickly, because the same legends describing the rise of the Silver Queen also warned of a devastating war that would follow her awakening. And far above the mountains, the kingdoms were already beginning to fracture. Meanwhile, inside Blood Moon territory, Alpha Kale was falling apart. The surviving rogue's confession shattered whatever certainty remained inside him. For months, Kale convinced himself Selena's death was partially his fault. But he faced something far worse. She had trusted him, followed a forged message believing he finally chose her. And while she walked unknowingly toward betrayal, he remained blind long enough for Seraphine to destroy everything. Witnesses later described the days following the interrogation as the darkest period in Kale's reign. He stopped attending council meetings entirely. Several warriors claimed the alpha barely slept. And according to one palace physician, Kale's wolf had become dangerously unstable. Because mate bonds do not react well to unresolved guilt, especially when the mate still lives. That truth now haunted every decision he made. Yet despite finally understanding Seraphine's betrayal, Kale faced another terrifying reality. He still could not find Selena. Not a single tracker succeeded beyond the northern mountain borders. Patrol wolves sent toward the ravines either returned empty-handed or refused to speak about what they saw entirely. One tracker resigned immediately after returning from the northern forests. When questioned privately, he reportedly described seeing silver eyes watching him through the trees for hours, not hunting him, judging him. The man never entered the northern territories again. Back inside the Shadow Fong Kingdom, Selena's emotional conflict was becoming increasingly dangerous, because the visions would not stop. Every night, the mate bond dragged fragments of Kale's emotions into her mind. Regret, grief, loneliness. At first she resisted them completely. Then came the memory fragments, small flashes. Kale arguing violently with Seraphine before the festival. Kale searches the cliffside alone after her fall. Kale nearly killed a warrior for insulting Selena months before the attack. The memories contradicted everything Selena believed. And that uncertainty terrified her. Because hatred had kept her strong. Hatred made survival easier. Hatred transformed pain into purpose. But doubt weakened everything. The elders noticed immediately. Especially the High Elder, Malric. Unlike the others, Malric did not trust mate bonds. He believed emotional attachment endangered royal bloodlines. And the more Selena questioned Kale's role in her betrayal, the more concerned he became. Because according to ancient prophecy, the Silver Queen could not fully awaken while emotionally bound to the past, which meant Selena faced an impossible choice. Hold on to the mate bond, or embrace the power growing inside her completely. Eventually, the elders decided the bond had to be severed, permanently. The ritual itself had not been performed for centuries. Ancient records described it as extraordinarily dangerous. Not because it could kill the participants, because it erased emotional connection at the soul level. Once completed, the mate bond could never be restored. No second chance. No forgiveness. Nothing. First, Selena refused. Despite everything Kale allowed to happen, part of her still hesitated. And deep down, that frightened her more than hatred ever did. Because after betrayal that severe, love should not survive. Yet somehow, pieces of it still remained alive inside her. Malric warned her repeatedly. If you carry him into your awakening, your judgment will fail. The queen cannot rule through weakness. Those words stayed with Selena for days. Weakness. That was the same accusation Blood Moon territory used against her her entire life. Too weak. Too emotional. Too fragile. Even inside the hidden kingdom, she was being told love itself made her vulnerable. Eventually, Selena agreed to the ritual. Not because she stopped caring about Kale. Because she feared what those feelings might eventually cost her. The ceremony began beneath the eclipse chamber deep within the mountain temple. Ancient wolves surrounded the ritual circle silently. Silver fire illuminated the cavern walls. And according to royal witnesses, the atmosphere inside the chamber felt unnatural from the moment Selena entered. As though the kingdom itself understood something irreversible was about to happen. The ritual required one final condition. Selena had to willingly surrender every emotional tie connected to the mate bond. Every memory, every feeling, every remaining trace of love. Only then could the Silver Queen fully awaken. First, nothing happened. Then the elders began chanting in the ancient language. Silver markings spread across Selena's skin instantly. Pain surged through the chamber violently enough to crack stone beneath her feet. And somewhere far beyond the mountains, Kale collapsed. Witnesses inside the Blood Moon Fortress later described the moment as terrifying. The Alpha reportedly stopped breathing for several seconds before dropping to his knees. Every wolf inside the palace felt the shockwave from the bond rupture. Some guards shifted involuntarily from fear alone. Because mate bond severance between ordinary wolves was already rare. But this was something far older, far more powerful. Back beneath the mountains, Selena screamed as the connection tore apart piece by piece. Memories flashed through her mind rapidly. The winter ceremony, the first moment she saw Kale, every rejection, every moment of pain. And beneath all of it, the one thing she tried hardest to bury. She truly loved him. Even after the cliffs, even after the betrayal. That realization nearly shattered her resolve entirely. But then came the final memory. Kale stood motionless while she fell into darkness. And suddenly, everything inside her hardened. The mate bond snapped. Silver light exploded through the chamber. Ancient wolves bowed instantly. The temple walls trembled violently. And for the first time in centuries, the full power of the Silver Queen awakened completely. When the light finally disappeared, Selena stood motionless inside the ruined chamber. The silver markings across her skin no longer faded. Her eyes glowed faintly even in darkness. And according to every witness present, her presence alone felt overwhelming. Not cruel, not violent, absolute. The High Elder lowered his head immediately. Then came the words that confirmed what the kingdoms feared most. The Wolf Queen has risen. Far away inside Blood Moon territory, Kale slowly opened his eyes after the bond rupture. And for the first time since Selena disappeared, he felt nothing from her at all. No emotion, no connection, nothing. The silence terrified him more than pain ever could. Because somewhere beyond the northern mountains, Selena Vale had finally let him go. And deep inside, Kale realized something devastating. He was already too late. The story doesn't end her. Part 2 continues from the exact moment everything begins to fall apart again. If you think the Silver Queen's rise was the end of the story, you haven't seen what comes after awakening. Watch Part 2 before the truth is buried again.